Welcome back to r/LegalAdvice, where people ask questions, get advice, and we get satisfaction. If you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, "Apartment Sold Out From Under Me, 3 Days to Leave in Florida." So here is the situation. Alright, hoping someone can help me with this one. The building I live in has an empty office space up front while I rent the apartment in the back. I've been paying $500 per month to live in this, basically a large studio apartment. I do not, nor have I ever, had access to the front, which is a business, part of the building. The bills are and have always been in my name. Last week I pay my rent electronically like any other month, receiving a payment confirmed. So yesterday I wake up to someone pounding on my door. They ask why I am there, claiming to be the owner of the property. I show them my 1-year lease, of which I am in the 7th month. The person at my door says they bought the property from foreclosure and gave me a number for the bank. I call the bank, who says they did foreclose on the property and that the property was listed as vacant. I call my landlord, whose number has been turned off. From what I can gather from the various phone calls, the previous owner, my landlord, went into default and then foreclosure. The landlord claimed the property had no one living there. The person who knocked on my door is the current owner of the property and is unwilling to have tenants as he wishes to live in the apartment in back. The current owner says that he is planning to move into the apartment and has told me if I am not out of the property in 3 days, by Tuesday, he will have me escorted from the property and will basically throw my things onto the street as I am not supposed to be there. The current owner also states that my lease is basically toilet paper as it was with the previous owner, not him, and so I have no claim on the apartment. I have no way to get in contact with the previous owner, as the number I have for him have been disconnected, and I went to his address and it is for sale. And now the questions: do I have any claim to stay on the property, at least until I can find another place? Any suggestions on how to find the old owner, my landlord, so I can get my security deposit/rent back? I did not realize the bank could foreclose/sell a property so fast, as well as that no one would inspect the property before listing, selling and buying it. Basically, this whole thing seems shady to me. Should I report this to law enforcement? As what? Thanks to anyone who can help me. Update Monday, April 8th. I got home today to find my stuff out on the streets, the current owner's doing. I called the cops, showed them my lease, etc., and they straight up moved my stuff back in. Thank God. Talk to a lawyer too, and like the comments say, I have 90 days at least to get my stuff together and move out. The officers helped me document all of my things and photograph damages, etc., as well as telling me that my old landlord was already being searched for as he ran out on the bank and several other debts. My lawyer says that as long as I continue to pay rent, I can stay until the end of my lease, but I'm not going to do so. I am looking for an apartment to move into right now or very soon. My lawyer also says that I may not get my security deposit back or that it may take a long time to do so. It was only $500 and it may cost more to fight for it than to just drop it. So, oh well. The officers called the current owner and had a talk with him, and basically it is my apartment, he is not allowed in, it is trespassing, just as someone below said. He is allowed in the business part, up front, not mine, never was, but not in my apartment. Moved all my absolute valuables to my job. My boss is really understanding and is letting me have some time off with pay to work this out. Thanks for all the help. I am looking at apartments now and will update again when everything is resolved. Final update, so I have found and moved into a new apartment. I am also hopefully going to be receiving my security deposit from the new owner with compensation for my broken property. And this is the advice someone in the comments gave. Wow, this is screwed up. I think you should speak to a lawyer in your county, as I think you have some strong arguments in your favor. However, here are some random thoughts in no particular order. the new owner needs to follow an eviction proceeding to kick you out. He can order you out now, but if you don't leave, he needs to go to a housing court and get an eviction judgment. Typically, when someone sells a property, any current leases remain in effect. The prior owner made a material misrepresentation to the bank when he said it was vacant, and the bank then assumed that information was correct when it sold it to the new owner. However, that should be on the old owner and not on you. The new owner and the bank should be taking the grievance up with the old owner. You should now be paying rent to the new owner, not the old one. If I were in your shoes, I would attempt to do the following things. Number 1, stay in the apartment until the lease is up while paying rent to the new owner. Number 2, sue the old owner for any rent you paid to him after the property was foreclosed on. You don't actually need to get in touch with him to sue him, you need to make every reasonable effort to serve him. But actual service may not necessarily be needed. I would also find a tenants' rights group in your area. They are all over the place and can help you figure out your next move. And guys, I'm not sure if you have noticed this, but considering that I've probably read, I don't know, maybe about 200 plus or even more legal advice stories, it seems like oftentimes the advice that was given many years ago, like in this case 7 years ago, was quite different than the advice people give nowadays on legal advice. I don't know the reason for this, but it is definitely something that I noticed. But then again, a subreddit can change a lot in a couple of years. And the next one is titled, I think my apartment has been targeted by law enforcement and I am an ENT. What should I do? I may just be paranoid, but I think it is better to be paranoid than reckless. I think my address may have been marked for a knock and talk. Early yesterday morning my doorbell rang. I did not answer because I was in the middle of an online poker session, and then I hear loud, intimidating knocking. Again, I did not answer, but I could hear 2 men conversing as they walked past my office window back to the parking lot. And by the way guys, I just tried to look up what ENT means, but I'm not exactly sure if maybe OP confuses the word for EMT, but I'm not really sure what ENT means. If anyone knows, please let me know in the comments. I thought this was strange for a number of reasons, but mostly because maintenance always gives 24-hour notification and always enters my apartment with a key if I don't answer the initial doorbell ring. I went to bed shortly after this incident. While I was sleeping, they returned 2 additional times. I never woke up. My girlfriend was awake but refused to answer the door because it seemed as though the 2 men, she could hear their voices, were purposefully avoiding the view of the peephole. She looked through the window as they left and said they were dressed in plain clothes and gave her a very creepy vibe. She said one of them was wearing a utility belt, but they looked nothing like any of the maintenance men she had seen around our complex. She also said that it seemed like their clothes just did not look right on them, as if they were trying to look as unofficial as possible. This occurred again later in the afternoon. I have a clean record, but I smoke MJ regularly and I know my apartment smells like Bob Marley more often than it does not. Would I be exaggerating if I said that this just reeks, pun only partially intended, of knock and talk? I can think of no other reason for the same 2 plainclothes dudes to ring my doorbell 3 times the same day. I understand my rights, but I am afraid that opening my door may lead to them somehow conducting a search despite my refusal after smelling burning MJ, and even if the evidence is later deemed inadmissible, it's not like they are going to give me back my pipes and bong. What is the best course of action? Do I answer the door if they return in the morning? Am I being paranoid? Update: nobody showed up in the early morning today and I slept throughout the afternoon. I appreciate all of the comments and advice, even the trolls. In addition, I've been living in the same college town for 11 years now. I am 99% positive these dudes were not employees of any utility company. My spidey senses were going off like crazy. Anyone who stumbles their way into this thread should take the time to read the Kentucky vs. King SCOTUS case that another user in the comments linked in the top comment. It will seriously alter your perception of how much protection the 4th Amendment really provides. Sadly, not much. And by the way guys, I read a few more of OP's comments and it seemed like these strange people never returned to his apartment, thankfully. Either way, people in the comments said, I'm not a lawyer, at the sub-CT level there is Kentucky versus King, but this is recent and I don't know how it has been applied by lower courts. Also, some states afford stronger search/seizure protections under state law. As a concerned Redditor and not a lawyer, I would be a tad worried if you were in an apartment and someone could have reported you for smelling up the place. I know you hate to hear this, but maybe store your stuff somewhere else for a week or so till this blows over. And someone else said, are you sure that these are police officers? Or could they be potential thieves checking to see what times you usually come to the door? If I were you, I would call the police department and tell them that strange men in plain clothes have been knocking on your door at weird hours, avoiding the peephole, and that you and your girlfriend are starting to feel scared. At the very least, you're making it appear that you don't intend to avoid the police, you just want to make sure you are safe. In the meantime, when you do smoke, do it in the bathroom or another room with the door shut, just in case someone does show up and needs to talk. Put towels or blankets down over door cracks to the outside of the apartment or invest in a vaporizer. And guys, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and also like the video if you want to support me. Thank you so much, your help is very much appreciated. And the next one is titled, Sydney, Australia, got myself in a stupid situation renting with an ex and his friend. If I'm not on the lease, can I just move out and cut power/gas/rent without legal problems? 3 years ago, I moved in with my boyfriend and his flatmate to a small house they are renting. They are both on the lease and I am not. I have no excuse but to say I was younger and more stupid with stars in my eyes when I moved in with him, and I ended up with gas and electricity in my hand, and I collect the rent from them and pay it every fortnight. It started like that because they worked and I did not at the time, and I had time to organize bills. It worked okay for a little while until after we broke up. It was an amicable split out of boredom more than anything else, and there's not much bad blood between us over the split. However, they are both getting lazier and my ex lost his job last year and is taking his time finding another one. He's more likely to be spending time gaming than looking for work, and if he's not gaming, he is getting stoned with our other flatmate. So far, the other two owe me at least 8 weeks of back rent that I've covered, so they are caught up with the estate agents, and at least 2-3 month bill cycles for gas and electricity. That is not to mention food, and I usually end up paying for most of what we all eat. At the state, their work is in with my ex unemployed and the other flatmate on lower hours than before. Together they cannot afford to pay the rent and utilities even if they were forced to. We have had several arguments about it since last year, and they promise to find more and better work, but nothing comes of it. I'm drained constantly pushing them to pay for everything in the place they are living in. I am not on the lease at all. Another job that fell to me was pushing them to get off their asses and resign when their renewal came up in October last year, so I know the paperwork side well. Both my ex and the other flatmate insist that I cannot just move out and stop paying because it would be illegal and like an eviction because they would have to break the lease, and they insist I cannot just cut off the utilities because we had a spoken agreement that I would handle those bills. If I push the point that I need to get them to take over the utilities, they refuse, beg me not to force them to, or promise they will do it as soon as work calls in more hours. That has not happened once. I came across legal advice a few weeks ago, and a couple of times I have seen the advice to never take legal advice from the other side's counsel. And essentially they are my opposing side, and I've been scared into staying. So from where I am now, with me not on the lease but paying electricity, gas and covering more and more of the rent they need to pay, and I've been doing it since late 2016, am I able to just move out and cut those utilities? Without them voluntarily taking over the electricity and gas, I would have to phone the suppliers and just cut off supply and the rent I pay in cash every fortnight, so I would just stop doing that. I also pay for most of the food, but since I would not be living there, that would not happen. The amount they owe me is in the thousands, but I am willing to cut my losses there and just leave it if it is legal. Would that be legal to just go and leave them to what they cannot afford? And a user in the comments said, yep, speak to your utility providers to get advice how to get those shifted out of your name, either just before you leave or shortly after, but apart from those accounts you have zero obligations to your deadbeat ex and his mate. Once you leave, you can pursue what the other pair owe you, but I'm guessing you have very little documentation of who paid for what, so that may be a struggle. And OP, you are not quite clear with the second paragraph, but there's nothing wrong with moving in without being on the lease, and there's nothing wrong with putting the utilities in your name. Where you went wrong was when you began to let them get away with not paying their share. But we all learn from experience. And another user said, obligatory, not a lawyer, but if you are not on the lease then you have no obligation to remain there. In other words, you're not breaking any contract if you leave. Do you have any documents, text messages, emails, notes, etc. that shows they agreed to pay you money for bills and rent and your portion, etc.? If I were in your position, I would find a new place ASAP, keep paying your share of the rent, keep paying utilities and get it in writing from everyone that they owe you some portion of previous utilities and rent that you have paid. Also start issuing receipts and or document everything when someone gives you money or ask to do it via bank transfer. Once you find a place or if you already have somewhere to stay, give them a week or two worth of notice that you intend to vacate. You don't need to stay there for that period of time, but it would probably help you in the future if they pursue you at all if you pay your portion of rent for that period of time. In addition, cancel the utilities and follow it up with NCAT if they don't give you the money they owe you. It sounds like you've got a good head on your shoulders and are trying to do the right thing, just document everything. Update to the rent story from before. This has all blown over here finally, more a drama update than a legal one. Not long after I posted last, I lined up my move out date, let my housemates, my ex and his friend, know in writing that I was going to move in 2 weeks and would no longer be paying the utilities in my name. Both of them told me I would not be moving out. I reiterated I was moving, one went back to the Xbox, the other got in a mood and went out and said we would talk about it later. I had a place to move to with a friend, but that fell through because her boyfriend might be moving in. I was not going to spend any more time in the house now that I had committed to leave and worked out with my parents to move in with them for a few months. The day before the move, I told both housemates that I would need them the next day to help me move. They said they wouldn't, and I figured either they would end up helping or they would pull their usual lazy trick and avoid work and disappear for the day, and it would make life even easier. They chose to take off somewhere else for the day and were out of the house by 8 AM. They never leave the house that early and rarely at the same time. My dad, a couple friends and I got all my gear out quickly, and after the housemates and their a-holery, I took everything I had bought. That included the television and the new Xbox, a sofa set, microwave and a few other things. I left a couple days' food in the fridge. We double-checked, left my keys taped to the fridge and took documentary photos of absolutely everything we could. Inside and outside the fridge, cupboards, bedrooms, fireplaces and in the ceiling crawl space. That night my phone blew up with calls I ignored from housemates, but also the friend I was going to move in with, that police had been looking for me, and then the police arrived at my parents' house to ask questions about my theft of everything my housemates owned. I told them the whole story and noted I had receipts for everything I took and that I had all the items with me. Nastiness got the better of me and I sent one message back to my ex telling him he could have anything I had taken from the house if he paid me for it in full, knowing full well they would not if they could, but could not anyway. He said he would pay a third and his friend, other housemate, would also pay a third and they would get the money to me after the TV and Xbox were returned. They were not worried about anything else, just the gaming gear. I did not reply and got a bunch more texts that turned more and more aggressive, and they stopped after a month. Curiosity got the better of me and I checked in on them 2 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks since I moved out, and the house is vacant and for lease. I've heard nothing more from the police, though I did compile a booklet with a photo of every item I took from the house and its receipt along with a screenshot of my credit union statement where the money came out, but so far have not had to use it. I have also kept an eye on my online accounts for the gas and electricity, and there's no unusual activity there. I've been paranoid that they would phone up and say the disconnection was a mistake or somehow talk the suppliers into putting it back on in my name. I have not found a place to live yet, but my parents don't want me to move out unless I really have to, and they are closer to work anyway. And wow, Ripe Stars, I would say these guys definitely deserve the award for the worst roommates I have ever heard of. And also I'm wondering, guys, have you ever had to deal with awful roommates as well? Let us know in the comments if you have had any experiences so far. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.